Hello, I hope you guys are doing well today. Welcome to day 2 of the drawing of the day. This right here, what we're going to do is we're going to draw a rabbit. It's getting close to Easter time, so I figured that'd be a good topic to draw. So here's a picture that I found off the internet. It's a pretty cute looking bunny. I'm going to first show you guys how to draw it kind of cartoonish style, and then I'll show you how to draw it a little bit more realistic, those that want to challenge themselves. Alright, so first things first, I'm going to look at the picture. I noticed that the body is extremely round, very round guy. And then it has a very round head, but it does have a smaller upper head and a bigger lower head with kind of roundish ears, really tiny feet. We can see the thigh back here of the leg, and then we also see the foot right here. So we don't see the other one that's on the other side of the body. We can see only 3 of the feet. All right, so to get started, let's get paper. All right. So the first thing I would do is I would start with the body. It's always easy if you start with the body first, just so that you can get the overall shape of it, and also so that you can make sure that you're saving space for the head and the feet. So to get started, I'm going to first start with this kind of an ovally shape. It's almost kind of like an Easter egg. Haha, cool. Alright, so kind of like a really chubby oval. Now, you can make this bigger, smaller, longer, wider. It's entirely up to you what kind of rabbit that you want. Alright, so that would make kind of the body shape. And then this right here, we can actually kind of see this indentation right here where there's a darker shadow. That's showing its shoulder lump. So what I would suggest doing is kind of draw like a little line, kind of like a parenthesis going up to indicate where the shoulders are. Kind of a little bit buff for rabbits. Alright, and then for the head, I would start off with just a simple circle. Notice how big the head is though. If I measure the head, it's about the same size as almost the body. So if I go like this and go up, that's going to be about how big I'm going to draw that head. So whenever you go to draw it, make sure you're kind of measuring it a little bit. But key thing, notice that the head overlaps into the body. So you don't want to put it like up here because that's going to feel awkward. So you want to go down inside the body a little bit. So I'm just going to draw a simple circle for now. I'm going to change it here in a little bit to make it more this shape. But here's the simple circle. And I've got the roundness of the back of the body going up to the front of the body. There is a little bit of an indentation right here where we can see the head is separate from the body. So it is okay to kind of leave this here, but we're going to change it up a little bit here in just a sec. Alright, so once you get the body and the head, then what I would suggest, go ahead and fix the head shape before you add the ears and all that. That way it saves you a lot of trouble for later. So the top of the head is basically just a big frowny face, and the bottom of the head is basically a big smiley face that we're kind of connecting all together. So the first thing I do is I'm going to establish the lower jaw. So that's just going to be, I'm going to start on the inside of the circle a little bit. I'm just going to make kind of like a parenthesis. This will be one cheek, got chubby cheeks, and then the other cheek right here. Now I can't see some of the muzzle right here, so it's a little bit of a shorter cheek going like this, kind of like another parenthesis. And then of course the frowny face that makes up the top of the head. It does go kind of straight at first and then it curves, so you don't want to do just like a perfect curve. So a little bit straight first, and then we're going to curve it down. Well, that's a very tall head. I'm going to make it a little shorter. Curving it down so that it meets back up on the other side. And of course, if you make mistakes, just erase these as you go along. Alright, so here we have the head shape down. Now, I'm going to go ahead and refine the body before I move on to the ears, because this right here is a little bit hard to see what I'm going for. So here I see that the body is actually coming out of the cheek. So right there next to the cheek, the body is kind of curving down. And then it's a little bit flatter on the bottom, and then it curves back up in a big poof. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start right here. I'm going to change this angle a little bit to go down, and then I'm going to kind of flatten this out a little bit, and then I'm going to add a big poof curving back up. So just kind of solidifying our shape, making sure it's exactly what we're wanting, and then I'm going to go ahead and darken my shoulder bump line going down because I know that I want to keep that. You can add additional ones if you want to, but this is all I'm going to do for now. Alright, so let's go ahead and focus on the face, and then we'll come back to the feet. So for the ears, they're kind of like a diagonal line, and then it followed up by a frowny face that changes back into kind of a parenthesis. So notice that it's kind of not in the center of the head, it's a little bit off to the side. So you don't want to do like unicorn horn. So go off to the side here. We're going to start with this slightly diagonal line, however big you want your rabbit ears. And then after you do the diagonal line, you're going to do a frown, like this. And then once you get the frown however big that you want the ear, you're going to start doing kind of a parenthesis back to the head, so that you get an ear shape. Now, before we move on to the other ear, notice that we have the inner ear and we have the outer ear. It makes kind of a triangle right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw kind of in the inside, about middle-ish. We're going to just draw kind of like another parenthesis going up. And that can make up that little triangle shape. So it's just that inner ear fold to help make it feel a little bit more like a rabbit. Now there are other things we can add, but we'll add that whenever we start making it look more realistic. All right, so on the other side we can see it's pretty much the same, so it's diagonal line, but this time it has a much smaller frown and then it goes down relatively straight because it's slightly turned. So in order to do that, I'm going to start pretty close to the other one. I'm going to start off with a diagonal line, making them about the same height, do a little frown, and then we're just going to bring it back down. So it's essentially, it looks like a carrot. And then we have the same technique that we're going to do for the inner ear. So I'm going to start a little bit of a parenthesis, and there we have the inner ear. It's already starting to look a lot more like a rabbit now, which is good, because before it wasn't. All right, so now before I do the eye, I'm actually going to go ahead and do the nose first. We can actually kind of see the muzzle right here is the area where the muzzle is. So the nose is kind of like a V that's really stretched out, and then it goes down to make it look kind of like a weird Y, and then we can see like an opposite V down here that's facing downwards. So to draw that, notice it's touching the side of the face because it's looking kind of in that direction. So to draw that, I'm going to start on the side of the head. I'm going to bring it in a V, like this, and you can make it bigger, smaller, depends on what you're doing. I'm going to drop it down into a Y, and then I might actually make it a little bit cuter by adding a little bit of a smile, because smiles are fun. Like this. So now we have this right here is the nose. That's the little mouthpiece separation thing. I don't know what they're called. And then we have the smile of the mouth. Okay, so once we got that, now we can draw the eye. The reason we do the ear and the mouth, or the nose first, is that it makes it easier to find the eye. So the eye is actually going to be in between the ear and the nose. Is going to be where you find that eye shape. So if I go in between my ear and my nose, I know that my eye is going to be in this area. So I'm just going to draw the eye as just a simple circle. You can do any shape that you want. And then, of course, as always, add a little bit of a highlight so that you give your rabbit a little bit of life. Now, I don't see the eye on the other side. There might be like a slight indication of an eye there, but because it's 3/4 turn, I don't really see that. Rabbits have eyes on like the side of their head, which is why I don't see that. All right, this is looking cute, cute, cute. Okay, so now for the other legs, what I would do, okay, so here we have, this is the muscle going down, and that's followed by a little bit of their hanging off fluff, and then we have little bitty nubs for feet that are super cute. And then back here we have the thigh and the foot. So I'm going to start with the front leg. So if I continue this on, I'm going to draw, sticking out just a little bit, I'm going to draw a bump right here to indicate that this floof sticks out a little bit more right here. And then I would erase the inside. So now we have a little bit of a floofier torso. And then I'm going to start kind of in the corner where the floof meets the body. I'm just going to draw kind of a smile line, or a parenthesis if you want to call it, followed by an opposite parenthesis like this. Just to give it a little bit of a foot. And then I would just repeat that same process. I'm going to start on the other foot, do a smile. After I do a smile, I'm going to just diagonal line it back. So now we got, it was so cute, little toes. All right, if you want to add toes and stuff, all you'd have to do is just do like little parentheses for little toesies. Oh, look how cute. Okay, so now we have the back leg. I would suggest do the thigh first and then do the foot. So because he's sitting, it's got a little bit of a squish to his thigh. So it's going to be kind of like a diagonal line followed by a little bit of a bump out on the back of the body. So what I would do first is I would actually start here where the leg made the body. And I'm actually going to draw the belly first. So I'm just going to draw a smile going up for the belly. You want to have a natural feeling curve, which is why you start at one corner and just smile it up so that it feels a little more natural. Now this seems too small, but don't worry, we're going to bump it out a little bit, okay? So after we have made that smile, I would kind of get rid of this line a little bit. Don't erase it all the way because you still want to be able to see it so you can follow your natural flow of the body. All right, once we get the belly line, then we're going to add that bump out for the back of the thigh. So to do that, I'm just going to make the parenthesis a little bit bigger and then curve it back into the body. So notice that this gives us a little bit of a thigh, and that helps make the rabbit look a little bit more like an actual rabbit and not like a potato, which would be cute. All right. The foot here is a little bit bigger than the feet up at the front. Rabbits' back feet are really big compared to their front feet. So whenever you go to draw this foot, make sure it's a little bit bigger than these feet. So to do this, this is basically just kind of like a square, but because we're going for cute aesthetic, we would want to make it a little bit more rounded. So I'm just going to start kind of on the thigh. I'm going to bring it down at a diagonal line. I'm going to curve it. Then I'm going to curve it back up. So it kind of makes almost a square, but it's a little bit more of a rounded square. Now the reason it's not super long is because a lot of that foot is tucked under the body, which is why you don't see it. All right, so from here, if I wanted to add some toes, I could still add some toes just by doing those little curvy lines. And then it looks like he's a little bit chubbier than what I have him drawn, so I'm going to make him a little bit chubbier by adding a bump. You don't have to if you don't want to. I just want to. All right, so I don't see the tail very much. There's a little indication of the tail here, but because I really, really want to see a tail, I'm going to draw a little tail because I want to. You don't have to, but all right. Now to make it look fluffy, of course, we're gonna do the same thing with the llama. I'm gonna add little frowny faces, kind of making it random, just to give it a little bit more of a floof tail. All right, so at this point, all you have to do is clean up, and then you can be done with the cartoony part. So I'm just gonna erase a little bit in some areas that I don't need. Any lines that you look at and you're like, I don't want it there, then you can just get rid of it. I usually just erase the lines that aren't as essential. I would keep the shoulder and keep like the little floof bump thing, but like any of the lines that are just your guidelines, you don't have to keep if you don't want to. All right, so here I have a cute little rabbit. If you're going for a cartoony style, this is adorably perfect. You can add Easter eggs around it, carrots, whatever you want. So if you're going for cartoony, you're done. If you want to color it, feel free to shade it, do whatever you would like. If you are wanting to challenge a little bit and make it a little bit more realistic, feel free to continue following along. All right, so the first thing that I would do, there really isn't much that we have to change. It's mostly just shading and textures. One thing I do see that needs to be fixed a little bit is the eye shape. It's a little bit more of a curved back with a little bit of a frown on the bottom, so it's not a perfect circle. So I would kind of tweak that just a little bit so that we get a little bit bigger actually than what I have drawn here. So it's kind of like you're changing it to be more of a big curve on the front, a little bit of a flatter line on the back, and then a little bit more of a frown on the bottom, kind of like this. And then we have that kind of a white ring around it. So I would just kind of indicate that with a little bit of a shadow so that I can see that white ring. And then I see on the ear, we have a little bit of an imperfect ear. Remember, a big difference between realism and cartoony. Cartoony things are a little bit too perfect. They don't have as much detail, and they look very, very clean and aesthetic. Whenever you go to realism, you're going to see things that are a little bit not very clean, not very perfect looking. So for example, the ear needs to be a little bit more lumpy. I'm going to change it so that this isn't a perfect lump. I'm going to make it a little bit more irregular, and that's going to help start making it feel more like it's realistic. So here I've added an additional bump to the ear, kind of made that not so perfectly rounded. I added a little bit of a lumpy texture to it. I could do the same thing over here on the belly area. I could add a little bit more of lumps and bumps. Don't go too exaggerated, otherwise it won't really look like a rabbit anymore. It'll look like a really weird thing that's not a rabbit. Yeah, so here I'm adding some more lumps and bumps. And some other areas, not going too crazy. I do see that I need to add a little bit of a fluff texture to the fur up here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to draw kind of like concentric, I don't know. They're fluffy lines. They're all connected together. It's kind of essentially you're just doing this back and forth, but you're trying to make it to where every now and then you lift up your pencil. So to do that, I'm just going to scribble, keeping them pretty small, making sure that they're kind of random, not totally perfect, kind of changing the direction that I'm tilting my pencil in. And then I can do that in some other areas too, just to give it a little bit more texture. Remember, the more detail you add, the more realistic it is. And that'll make it to where it looks more like the picture you're doing, or more like the kind of thing that you're going for. Here I can see that there's some more kind of like wrinkles and rolls on the rabbit, so I'm just going to add some additional fluff textures in those wrinkly areas, just to give it a little bit more realism to it. Now it's still going to look kind of cartoony, but that's okay. So here I'm just adding a few more fluffs. So remember, don't go too crazy on the fluffs, otherwise it's going to look really scribbly. So I'm just doing it in the areas that look a little bit darker, and areas that I think that needs to have a little bit more fur texture if it looks too smooth. So here on the body area right here, it's not as fluffy, or it's not as dark here, but I am adding a couple, just little, these are called hatches. They're just basically little bitty, tiny, almost dots, but you kind of pull them a little bit. Adding a little bit of fluff in here. All right, so there's a lot more realistic. I could add a little bit more detail to make these paws not so perfectly cute and adorable. Add a little bit more of those lumps and bumps. Just make it feel a little bit more imperfect. All right, so from here, if I wanted to, I could add some color or shading. I'm once again just going to do shading. One thing I did forget to add was the whiskers. Rabbits have whiskers very similar to cats, which a lot of animals actually have whiskers. You just might not notice it. All right, so here I'm just going to finish it up by adding a little bit of shading to it. I'm not too worried about making it too perfect. By the way, whenever I shade, I like to shade kind of going in the same direction for the whole picture. That way it looks very clean, and it doesn't look like it's too scribbly of a mess. So that's why I usually always shade. I personally like shading kind of like back and forth like this. You can shade in whatever direction that you want to, though. All right, so shady, shade. It's looking so cute. Okay, so I like that. I would call that done. I think that works out for a good sketch. All right, so feel free to continue adding to it. Draw it better than what I'm doing here if you want. But have fun with it. All right, I hope you guys have a good day. Bye.